Welcome to the Painting Coach, and this is an exciting video. Why, might you ask? Here's why. It's time for Warhammer Age of Sigmar Skaventide. I'm really delighted the Games Workshop sent me the box to preview for you. In this video, we're going to be having a look at the contents of the Skaventide box. We'll be going through the build instructions, the sprues. I'll show you some of the built models and also talk you through the books and accessories you get. So hold on tight. This is a long one. Let's get into it. Now, first up, it's worth saying I really like the way Games Workshop are now packaging their boxes. So rather than all be plastic, it's all card. You've got some really nice artwork. So let's just open this up. And then you've got a nice presentation sleeve with everything you need. Now, I'll go through all of these bits later on. Oh, that's cracking artwork, isn't it? Really good artwork. So yeah, I'll have a look at these later on when we get to that section. But the first thing I want to do is pull out the building instructions. We'll have a little look at these first. So standard instructions, walks you through it, talks you through all the sprues you get here. So you got your Stormcast, your Skaven, you've got some terrain as well, which is really interesting. And then, yeah, I'm conscious that this is a little bright, so you might not be able to see all the writing, but that's fine. It's more about talking through some of the pictures that we've got on here and me talking through my thoughts when it comes to construction. So first up, we've got the Lord Vigilant on a Gryphstalker, which is a fantastic looking model. Now, it looks like a fairly straightforward construction. You've got a head option, which is always nice. I get why the starter sets have got the push fit models. I don't like them because they tend to leave gaps. So we'll talk about how we could potentially sort of minimize some of that. But really, it looks like a fairly straightforward model to put together. The legs are molded onto the Gryphstalker. So just bear that in mind when it comes to thinking about how you're going to paint this. Now, whilst the armor of this guy is metallic or whatever color, the armor really is quite a small element, so it might be worth considering when it comes to priming, focusing on the Gryphstalker itself. The one thing that jumps out to me on this in terms of potential difficulty is this little bit of cloak here. So if it's difficult, it's going to leave a little gap. So there's going to be a little bit of a gap that needs filling there, which if you're a beginner, you know, I'll talk you through perhaps how to do it once I've built it myself so I get a better understanding. But generally, the way it's built, you're going to have to probably build most of it. There's some bits you might be able to leave off, but you are going to have to build most of it before you paint it, which is going to present itself with a little bit of a challenge in itself. But if you see my Abraxia video, then, you know, we took that challenge on. For the Lord Veritant, again, seems a fairly straightforward build. Some nice bit of fire and flaming bits going on there. It's interesting, and again, you've got the kind of the gaps in the cloak. And the reason I say it's interesting is when we look at some of the other models, the gap's not there, so it's down to the design. But again, once it's built, we'll be able to see how that falls. And one of the recent things that Games Workshop should be really good at is hiding some of these things in the design. So I'm looking at it from the instruction point of view. Obviously, you look at the CAD file, you can see sometimes on the CAD file where you've got the gaps. And if you look at the Abraxia building instructions, they're the same. You can see that there are gaps on there, so it just shows that the sculpt isn't quite crisp, and you're always going to have that gap there unless you fill it yourself. But again, it's a great looking model. That's probably going to be a bit of a seam along there, and particularly this is where I'm going to be cutting the pins and cutting those holes open. The Lord Terminus is absolutely my favourite model from the set. He's got an absolutely massive axe, but I just love how badass his pose is. But what's really interesting when you look at this one is you look at the cloak is one piece. So whilst there's lots of layers on there, you've got a little gap there where the fur joins. But because you've got that one piece shoulder pad, what you can probably get away with the Lord Terminus is leaving the cloak off and painting it separately. And I think that's going to be quite important to get in all the colours. And the other thing that's interesting is he's painted in the gold, is it the Hammers of Sigmar scheme, not the silver box art. The Night Questor, great looking model again. Cloak's completely separate. However, I think you will probably have that gap there where the shoulder pad connects and everything. So that's something to think about. Hopefully we'll be able to do that with either with just the glue itself or with some of the sprue glue. When it comes to the Reclusians, my second favourite model because they just look badass with their axes and their shields, but they've got lots of character. And again, their cloak is a one piece, so you could potentially look to leave the cloak off. You've got the one piece shoulder pad going over there as well, which is important because that hides the gaps. Like I said, that's one thing Games Workshop have been pretty good at. Where you've got the shield on the back, you can leave that off. So I'm really looking forward to getting into building these, because that's going to give me an idea of how it's going to look. And then obviously we're going to build them as part of this video as well. I'm not just going to show you what's in the box. I'm going to build them and show you how they look built as well before I get into priming. The prosecutors are interesting because I think that they're better off leaving the wings off. But that means taking some of the pins off. So I think leaving the wings off, because you can prime them white and then you can prime the prosecutors up in the main armor. So we're going to have a little look at how that works. We've got two options here. So you can build it either as a champion, which is here with the spear and the small shield, and possibly a slightly different helmet, I'm sure, or you can just build it as a normal prosecutor. So I'm assuming if you had another 3 of these, you could build them as a unit of 6. So yeah, but again, they look pretty cool. I like how the flames are done, but I'm probably going to try and do them a little bit different. I think the flames might look better if they extend out through the entirety of the wings, rather than just being the flamey bit. The whole wing blends into that. So we'll have a little go at doing that standard tactical piece of terrain that they're all throwing themselves off there, which is pretty cool. But yeah, again, we'll have a look at how that build looks, because I'm thinking this whole back part we can leave separate like they've shown there, but we'll have a look at it when we get into the nitty-gritty. And then we've got the Liberators. Now, one of the big things about the Liberators is the fact that you've got one-piece shoulder pads. So in the previous Age of Sigmar start set boxes, all the shoulder pads would tend to be 2-piece. You'd also have a gap, but on these are all 1-piece, which is great because it just looks a little bit better for my mind. Now it says here, all models in the unit must be armed. Sorry, move it over. All models in the unit must be armed with the same weapon option. And then we've got one person with a different weapon. So I'm not sure how that works. I'm assuming perhaps there's a special rule that allows that additional 2-handed chunky hammer. But again, we've got a champion variant, which has got a plume, and then we've just got a normal Liberator there. So you can either build them with hammer and shield or with 2 hammers, because when hammer time is not quite enough, you have to go for double hammer time. In terms of the building, they look pretty decent, pretty straightforward. Like I said, it's good that they've got the one-part shoulder pad, because that just makes the models look a little bit better. The poses are quite cool and dynamic. We've got some head options by the looks of it as well. So we'll try and incorporate that. I'll probably build one unit like this and one unit like that, just to show you the difference. And yeah, the construction is fairly straightforward. So let's have a look at the sprues. We won't go into the Skaven just yet. We'll have a look at the sprues for these guys first, and then we'll drop back onto the Skaven. So first up, we have got the Lord Vigilant on Gryfstalker. Fantastic looking model, comes on just the one sprue. So I think if this is available separately afterwards, this is how you're going to get it. Just the one build option apart from the head. So you've got the helmeted head there, and then the bare head there. Bare head looks quite stern. Some wisps of plastic on there. But generally, a nice looking model. It'll be interesting to see how it goes. And again, how it's designed to hide gaps. So I'm looking at some of these feathers here. They're going to be designed to hide some of the gaps. So the only gap I think we're going to have to deal with is this cloak. But generally, seems okay. Might leave this armor plate off. Might leave this one off the head as well, we'll see, just to make them easier to paint, but also in terms of doing a painting demo, it'd be easier for me to show you. Interesting, we've got a spare claw here as well, a nice chunky shield, and some nice indentations as well to put some glow effects on there, which comes across in the artwork. Next is the Lord Veritant, which comes on just a normal sprue, little one on its own. So we've got his, I think, is it a Gryfhawk, Gryf Sparrow? I don't know. But then we've got all his little bits and pieces on there as well, with his brazier flaming sword, which is quite cool. And his head there with his bandage around his eyes. So I'm assuming he's blind. I'm sure there's a lore reason for that, which I am not 100% sure on. Again, with the cloak, it'll be interesting to see how it goes together, to see if it is designed to hide some of those gaps. You see where you'll have the connection point. I hope you see it, there's not too much shadow. Where you have that connection point there, you've got the full shoulder pad to go over it, so that's not too much of an issue. That's, again, another nice model. It's got a pretty mean shield as well. It's kind of less, I say less designed. Less designed is the wrong word. It's obviously got all this parchment on it, but it doesn't have the kind of the hard edge border. It's just like it's been wrought out of solid iron, or Sigmarite, I suppose is the correct terminology for that. There we have a very chunky sprue, which has got Oh, it's got the Reclusian, the Lord Executor. Is that his name? That's not his name. We've got the Night Quester there as well. So, Lord Terminus, not Lord Executor. Not a solicitor, he's not dealing with wills. Although he is executing Stormcast, which I find really interesting. So, let's have a look at the Night Quester. Again, very nice. Just flip that over so you can see all the pinholes. Now, to deal with the pinholes, what you do is just cut them with your snippers. So there, just cut it at the bottom, at the top, maybe left and right. So when you push the pin in, it expands and just gives you a more snug fit. You can also cut these pins off or trim them down because not sure if you can see it on the camera on this one, but what I find with these pins is that actually they get a little bit wider towards the end, so it's a bit harder to push in and get that tight fit. So again, Night Quester is a nice model. Going to have a little bit of a challenge with a gap perhaps on his cloak, but we'll see when he's built. And then we've got all the other, the Reclusiasms again, which are just fantastic models, nice and detailed. Cloaks are one piece, which makes them easier to paint, so that's nice. You've got the Memorians here as well. So again, nice figures. It'll be interesting. They may have gaps down the side that we need to fill. If they do, that's fine. And we've got the big bad Lord Terminus here. That's his big ass axe, which I love. And again, just the detail on this model is fantastic. Really, really like him. So it'll be fun to paint that one up. Then we have the Prosecutors. Now, again, these come like this. So you've got 1, 2, 3 Prosecutors. So imagine if these are available separately afterwards, this is how they're going to come. So you've got the options on this sprue here, which is going to be for the champion, just a normal Prosecutor. And then you've got the other 2 normal ones here. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to put these together. I think looking over, there's quite a chunky pin there that goes through the Prosecutor with the wings from the backpack. And obviously we're going to be attaching that front plate's got a very wide hole. So obviously that's going to attach onto there. So it's going to be interesting to build these because I am going to try and do them with the wings separately. But generally these are, they're pretty nice. I think they're an improvement on the older ones. No, it's something that just makes me laugh sometimes. So the head is in 2 parts. So you've got this here, and then you've got the front, the faceplate there. Why is the head in 2 parts? I guess the design process. Because if you look at this bit here, it works its way in, it secures itself in, and then those wings are going to come through that hoop there as well. It seems overly complex, but I'm not a miniatures designer, so I trust in how the Games Workshop sculptors sculpt because they are fantastic models. So they obviously have a reason behind that, but just, yeah, I struggle with that a little bit. Lastly, we have the Liberators. So you get 2 of these sprues. So again, everything you need on there. And I imagine when these are available separately, this is how you're going to get them. I don't think there'll be a multi-part kit. I might be wrong. But essentially, you get 5 bodies, and then you have 5 shields and all the weapon options, different head options as well. I think there's probably 5 or 6 head options. So what have we got? We've got a bear head, or maybe each one's got a bear head option. So there's a bear head there. So that's 1, 2 bear heads, 3 bear heads, 4 bear heads, 5 bear heads. Yeah, so there's 5 bear heads, 5 helmeted heads. So you've got the options there. And like I said, you've got the different weapon options as well. These are going to be fairly easy and straightforward to build. It's just a question of removing mold lines, really. So yeah, nothing overly hard about making these. Again, a nice improvement, I think, on the original ones, which are probably a little bit too chunky. These are a bit skinnier and in line with the ones that came out in the last edition. So yeah, we'll get some of these all built. We'll have a look at the built models next. So let's make a start looking at the models. So I've not built them all, but we'll start with the Lord Vigilant for the Stormcast, looking very regal. Very, very nice model. There's going to be a little bit of a challenge to paint in some of those recesses there, because you have to, the way the model's built, you have to attach the cloak to another part here, so you can't leave the top half off, unfortunately. There are some gaps like I anticipated, so I've just used some sprue glue in there, a little bit on the bird head there, but I'll just give that a little bit of a buff out with a sanding pad just to smooth it over. But yeah, really nice looking model. I'll paint this guy for a video. He has got a shield, which I've left off just to make it easier to get into these areas here. Next up, we have the Lord Veritant. And I realised why I think they're blindfolded is because they're distributing justice. I think. Might be wrong. But again, nice model. Went together quite easily. There's a little bit of a gap there which I've missed, which I'll just chuck a little bit of sprue goo in there. But generally it's designed in a way that you can't see the folds on here, which is pretty cool. And everyone likes fire, so we'll get those flames painted up nice and cool as well. And as for the Griff Hawk Hound, not sure where it is. Again, lovely looking model. I like how he's got a little bit of a thing there for his lead. But again, just going to have to buff out the gap there. Now we've got the Lord Terminus, which I said is my favourite model, and I still stand by that. Now I probably should have left his cloak off, but I put it on. The reason I put it on is because of this gap we've got here. In hindsight, I could have got away with leaving it off, but that's fine. The arms are loose, so I can pop that off to paint in there, and obviously paint this separately as well. That should be fairly straightforward. It should be okay. Again, no gaps on this one, apart from just here, which bit of sprue goo, and yeah, just going to buff that out again with a little bit of a sanding pad. So still my favourite model from the box. I was tempted to change the head and use the bear head from the Lord Vigilant, but I didn't in the end. But maybe if I build another one, I will. We've then got the Reclusians. I think that's how you pronounce it. Again, more cool models, so fairly straightforward to paint. The main gap they've got is through here, so a little bit of smoothing over that, which is fine. This guy's really badass. He's got his 2 axes, dual wielding, with his shield on his back. Again, going to be fairly straightforward to paint, but it's a really nice model, this one. I do like it. And the other two are... Pose is pretty similar. The only difference is that this guy's male, this one's female. So you've got a little bit of variation there, but the pose is a little bit the same, whereas you could say this one is perhaps either advancing or standing to brace, whereas this one is just waiting for whatever to happen. He's just chilling. And again, you've got the same gap across the top there where the cloak meets. You can see it's very shiny because that's where I've got my sprue goo in there. So I may try and just give that a little bit of a buff down. Take the primer. So there's the Reclusiasms. They come with the Memorians. Again, these are fairly easy kits to put together. They've got a little bit of... actually, no, only one of them has a gap, I think, because these are quite well designed. So you see you've got the legs. The gap is in the recess there, and that's really clever design. Similarly here at the top, with the way the shoulder pads go together. So yeah, so you've got this one with a brazier. You've got this one with a brazier. They've all got braziers. And again, cleverly designed so that the gap is in that deepest recess there, which is really cool. And then this kind of shoulder pad is one piece, so how it fits together means that there's no gaps on display. And then finally, we've got this one with the scales with 2 braziers. Now, this one did have the gaps down the side, so again, bit of sprue, buff that out with a sanding pad, but generally, that should be fine. And these are pretty cool models as well, so I'm looking forward to giving these a bit of a paint. Next up, we've got Prosecutors. So I've only painted I've only built the champion, so went together very quickly, very easily actually, so that was good. You'll notice the wings and the shield are missing. That's to make painting easier. So you've got the shield there. And the other good thing is you've got this little nub, and it's the little nub that goes through the hole there, but actually you can use something to grab onto that, which means that holding it to paint is going to be much easier. I'll talk to you about the wings for a second. The way you're supposed to build these is put the wings on first, and that goes through the model, and it goes all the way through, and actually pins the chest piece on. Now, I decided not to do that because I want to paint these separately. So what I am going to have to do is cut this off completely when I want to attach it to the model. But that's fine. I'm happy to do that. But in the meantime, I can't attach these to the model with that because of the way the trident spear works. But I can use that to grab on, and that will then make it easier to hold for me to paint. So that's good, and I'm happy with that. So lastly, for the Stormcast, we've got all the Liberators, and I have to say these are quite nice to put together. They're very simple. Gaps-wise, not very many at all. This is the champion, so we've gone for the single hammer and shield option. Again, the shields got that nice little nub that you can use to attach something. Now I'm going to prime them separately just to make it a little bit easier, but generally they are very nice. So just have a quick look through some of the other ones. Some bracing there. And you get 10 in the box. So I've built 5 of them to have that one squad. So again, similar poses with hammers lifted. And then the last one is this one here, who's got the great hammer. I decided to leave this one helmetless as well because he's a complete mad lad, just charging, or she's a mad lass, I should say, charging down the battlefield, swinging that massive hammer, which I think is pretty cool. So that's the Stormcast. I'm very excited to get painting them and figuring out how to get them done fairly quickly because I've got some ideas. So let's have a look at the Skaven next. So next up, we've got the Skaven. So let's have a look at their instructions in the book. So first off, we've got the Claw Lord on Norbeast. So again, this infinitely more fragile looking than the Stormcast. So it's going to be interesting. There's lots of bits you can catch yourself on, so you have to be careful that you don't accidentally snap a bit of the model off. Now, straight away, it looks fairly straightforward to build. You may have a bit of a seam or a gap through there, which you need to deal with. But definitely we'll be building this and leaving the Norbeast separate, and then we'll build the Claw Lord separate as well, because it's just going to be so much easier to paint, I think, doing it that way. Again, it's a nice, funky little rat man looking at. Like I said, I love the look of the Skaven. I love the contraptions. They're perfect for contrast painting and dry brushing to get them done, but there's 40 clan rats in this box, and that just feels intimidating to me a little bit. Then we've got the Gracier. I think the Gracier is probably my favourite Skaven model. So it just looks so cool. And he's like a crazy Skaven magician. I'm looking forward to building it because I know it always seems bonkers when I say it, but the miniatures are always smaller than I anticipate them being. So that's going to be an interesting one to look at. Warlock Engineer, again, is quite cool. It's interesting. A lot of the Skaven clan rats are done this way as well, where they're kind of just split in half down the middle. So it's going to be interesting to see how those gaps work out. But obviously, we're going to give it a little bit of a build, and we're going to have a little look at it. The Rattling Warp Blaster, I think, is everything great about Skaven because it's utterly, utterly bonkers. In terms of painting it, I'm not sure how to sort of build it until I kind of see it. I'm not sure how to build it in a way that's going to make it easier to paint or quicker to paint. So that's going to be an interesting one for me. But it is an absolutely crazy contraption. And just seeing the painted versions here, yeah, I am a big fan of it. It's just wild. It's just bonkers. So yeah, so I think potentially we're going to see here where we've got some gaps maybe, but we'll see how the armor panels go together. And the other thing with Skaven is a little bit like Orcs in 40k. They're just wild and bonkers. So you can just chip things up and weather it, put some sprue goo and not worry if it's completely smooth because it looks like a weld, and those kinds of things. So yeah, that's one of the cool things about Skaven, which we'll be looking at. Then we've got Rat Ogres, which again are fantastic. Now I remember the old Rat Ogres that came with Island of Blood, Warhammer Fantasy. They were really nice miniatures, and these are quite funky as well. So it's good. As with everything, it's going to be interesting to see how it all goes together, where the gaps are going to be. So you see you've got heads going across here, but what's really interesting about this, I'm not sure if you can see it there, it's probably not zoomed in enough, but the head goes underneath the armor plate, so you're not going to get a seam line there, whereas this one is different. So that might be, again, a challenge to kind of eliminate that, but we'll have a little look at it. So we've got 3 Rat Ogres, 2 Rat Ogres. Is it 3 or 2 Rat Ogres? Oh, so we've got options. So you can either build it with the gun or with the claw there. And then we've got the option to build it with a swinging knife and a sharp arm, or you've got the kind of more power claw and then the wrist mounted. Pretty impressive knife blade there. So yeah, so you've got 2 options, 2 Rat Ogres, so as you get that in the single release box as well. And then we've got options for the Warplock Jezzails as well. Who comes up with these names? So you can either do a champion or you can just do a normal Warplock Jezzail. So yeah, that's going to be interesting. So these are long range snipers shooting out their warp fire. So you've got the 3 smaller rats who have got the shield, which is what the weapon is mounted on. And then you've got 3 of these all together, which you can see there. So again, seem fairly standard. I think it's probably going to be easier to leave the guy with the gun off the base to paint them, because otherwise you're just going to be trying to get into this gap here. So that would be something to consider. And then we've got the clan rats. So 40 of them. Now it's a fairly intimidating number of clan rats, I'm not going to lie. there's a lot. And again, remember I said earlier on, we've got the gap there down the middle. You can really see it pronounced here, and that's on the CAD drawing. So if it's on the CAD drawing, it's going to be on the miniature itself as well. So there's going to be a little bit of gap filler that needs to happen along there. Even when you cut the pegs off, you may not get that really crisp gap across the middle. So that's going to be something to consider. So generally, and I remember this being in one of the Warcom articles about there being quite few parts. So like this is a 2-parter for the banner bearer, or 2-parter there, which is good because they're going to be quicker to build. I just think the pins are going to cause some issues, so we need to kind of cut that out. And we'll have a look at what the sprues are later on. But obviously, you can be doing like 3 or 4 of each of these, perhaps, or are they all? Oh, there we are. Not sure. You've got some unique ones, and then you've got 2 of each, which are going to be a little bit similar. Which in a mass of rats is not going to be too much of an issue. So yeah, so you've got an alternative standard bearer there. You've got an alternate champion or scryer, verminous. Are these kind of, I don't know Skaven, so are these like sergeants, or are they special models within a unit? I'm guessing they are. You've got the musician here as well. So we'll build them all up. I'm not sure I'm going to build 40 of them, but we'll build certainly the key character ones. And it's nice that you get a different standard bearer or standard bearer variant as well across the 2 units of 20. So that's cool. So we are. We'll have a look at those Skaven Sprues next, and then we'll have a look at the terrain. So first up, we have the Clawlord on Norbeast, and again, same size sprue as the Lord Vigilant from the Stormcast, but again, you can see there's lots of little bits hanging off, so lots of little bits you can catch yourself on. But this model's perfect for things like contrast and dry brushing. It's a decent size as well, and that's really nice. You can get some really nice metallic effects, which I will show you obviously in a painting tutorial as well. Yeah, this is quite a nasty looking model in a good way. Yeah, it's just like an oversized rat Norbeast, and then you've got the Skaven champion on there. I like pieces like this. You've got that armor in one piece, so just there's no gaps. You can just build it, and it should look pretty good. Say that, and then you've got the other side here, so there may be a gap in the back of the armor, but we'll work on that because that peg hole is quite shallow, so it's going to be hard to widen that. Where's the bit that goes in it? That's going to be some funky stuff. So it's this bit that goes in it, possibly. I'm not sure. But yeah, I'll have a look at that. And once I've built the models, I'll talk you through how I did that anyway to get the best out of them. Next up, we've got the Grey Seer and the Warplock Engineer. So he's a 2-3-part model there, the Engineer. So again, that's quite a funky one. Should be fairly easy to put together and fairly straightforward to paint as well. And then we've got the Grey Seer, which is a bit more complex. I love this smashed bell that he's got on his base as well, and his staff. So yeah, I'm looking forward to painting the Grey Seer. I think it's a really cool model. Don't see any challenges in putting them together. The only challenge, like I said, it's always funny, and I always say it's like they're just smaller than I anticipated them being. But I'm looking forward to building it and actually having that model in my hand. So yeah, you get the 2 models on the sprue there. So I guess, you know, if they do sell this single or as a single, then you're gonna have to buy both together. They may only be exclusive to this box, I don't know, but yeah, quite cool models. Next up, we've got the Rattling Warp Blaster, which actually I'm quite surprised at. Looking at the instructions, it seems a lot more complex than it is, but it all comes together on just this one sprue. So it's going to be interesting. Now, okay, so there's 4 rats pulling it, which, yeah, I guess that makes sense. And actually, they're almost one piece, which is really good, because you're not going to have gaps across them. So you've just got a little bit of a mould line to clean off there. So yeah, they're virtually one piece, apart from their extra arm. And then you've got the I was going to call it the pilot, the gunner, which, yeah, you just need to glue his leg on there. So it's been interesting getting these all into some semblance of a constructed model. Again, this one's going to be an interesting one to try and figure out how to paint. It may be that we've got the bottom chassis and then we leave the top separate on there as well. So just conscious I've been showing you these without my light, so it may have been a bit too much shadow. So yeah, what I'll do is I'll leave that there. You can pause the video there, and I'll bring back the Grey Seer and Engine Seer, so you can pause the video there if that's a better better view of the sprue. You're going to be able to see them on Warhammer.com once they've actually got these up. But just in case they haven't got them before the pre-order, you can have a look at them here on the video. And then there's the Norbeast and the Skaven Lord, which you can have a look at as well. So again, feel free to pause the video if you want to have a detailed look at that. We then have the Rat Ogres, and I think there are three. There are three Rat Ogres. Are there three? Only pairs of legs. 1, 2 pair of legs, another pair of legs, and then so there are 3 Rat Ogres. So yeah, so maybe the instructions are a bit confusing, or more likely I read them wrong. Again, you get this nice big sprue, so I can see what you'll get is that. Snap that one off, chuck it on there. They'll go into a nice standard Games Workshop size box for your purchasing needs for when you want a to buy some Rat Ogres. Again, you've got the pinholes, so it'll be interesting to go through. And the main thing I'm worried about with these is the gaps that you might get across the body, which obviously, if you're going to be using contrast paints and things like that, they're going to get into those gaps and you can leave you a bit of an unsightly seam line. So we'll have a look at that. The weapons, interestingly, I think they'll go on to each other quite nicely, and they'll hide most of the gaps here as well. But again, once we've got them built, we'll know for sure. Next up, we've got the Jezzails. Now again, feel free to pause the video there so you can have a good look at the sprues and zoom in if you want to. These are quite cool. And again, interesting, the majority, they've been done in as few pieces as possible, I think, which is good because it just makes there's less gaps. So it'll be interesting to get these through now. Like I said, you've got the 4 long rifles. So you've got the champion version and you've got the standard Jezzail version. You've got the shields again, which is going to take contrast paint really nicely. The metallics will be nice and dirty as well. So again, the only worry I've got with any of these is how they're going to look once we've pushed them together. What the gaps are going to be. And finally, we have the clan rats. So again, snap that over. You'll have the sprue into a nice normal size box. So might as well do that now to make it easier for me to show you these on camera. So there we go. Whoops, we've got the clan rats. So how many we got? 10 on there and 10 on the other, I guess, to give you 40 altogether in the box. You get 2 sets of these sprues. So nice models, 2-parters. Again, cutting the pegs down is probably going to be the best because that's going to give you a tighter fit, a more snug fit, which I think is going to be fairly important on these guys. There's a lot of them. 40 clan rats. I think I'm remembering back to the Island of Blood, the whatever edition of Warhammer Fantasy that was with the elves, and I remember painting the clan rats for a commission for that, and I think there were probably 40 in there. These were the days before contrast paints, and yeah, it was a harrowing experience. So I'm hoping these will be better, and I think they will because the tools we've got now are a little bit better as well. So we'll see. Again, you've got the 2 different standard bearers, which are nice. You've got the kind of the musician banging the drum there. You've got sort of the leaders, he's ringing his bell. So yeah, so some nice models here for the Skaven, which again, once we get them built, and obviously I'm going to do that, we'll be able to sort of analyse them a bit better and see how they go together. I'll talk a little bit about potential paint ideas as well. So let's have a look at the Skaven. And first off, we've got the Clawlord on Nashbeast. So you'll notice the Clawlord is missing. That's because I left him off to make it easier to paint. Now, and you'll also notice how shiny this is because there's quite a lot of gaps. It's worth saying that on all the models from this kit, I've cut the pegs to make them fit, hopefully a little better. But this is disgusting in a good way. Yeah, it looks like a proper mutant. So it's pretty nasty, pretty cool. But yeah, lots of gaps on this one. There's the Clawlord. So like I said, I was going to leave him off because it just makes it easier to paint. Probably just attach something underneath there just to hold him. And again, he's literally a horned rat. You can see that poking through there as well. So he's a little bit, excuse me, a little bit mutated. So that's that one. Next up, we've got the Grey Seer, which I think is my favourite Skaven model. Lots of material flapping in the wind. I do love this bell. And yeah, just overall a great model. Lots of detail. So I'm gonna enjoy painting this guy, I think. Next up is the Warlock Engineer. Very simple kit, 4 pieces. A few gaps. In fact, you see I've missed some along there. So this is tends to be the challenge with these push fit minis. There's a little gap there, and I'll probably fill that. That's fine. Won't take me 2 minutes to do that. But yeah, that's the only issue. But again, another nice model that's totally different to what we've got, which is cool. Again, another gap I've missed there. So I just need to go back and repair those. Next up, we've got the Rattling Warp Blaster, I think it's called. And again, this is so Skaven, it's utterly bonkers. I do quite love it. It is quite mad, and there's like quite a nice bit of detail in there as well. So just in terms of the cogs, and when you probably can't see the intricacy of it here, but they're all linked, so you can see in theory how they'd work. One thing I've done is I've left this unglued to make it easier to paint, easier to get to, and same for this bit here. So you've got obviously the 4 rats that you need to do and the undercarriage, and then you've got the actual weapon itself, which is going to be mainly metallic, apart from some of the clothing and obviously the wood underneath there. So yeah, that's a pretty funky kit. I do like this just because it's mad, a little bit bonkers. The other thing I've noticed about this game as well, there's also sharp bits. So yeah, I've cut myself once or twice on them. Next up, we've got a Rat Ogre. So I've only made the one. Now the Rat Ogre suffers a little bit from all the different parts. There are lots of gaps on it. So I did, again, you can see it's very shiny because I've used a lot of sprue goo on it. Now I'm probably not going to worry too much about going and smoothing them out because it is quite organic, so I don't have to worry about it so much as perhaps with the Stormcast. It's not going to have that much of an impact. Again, lots of pegs trimmed down and sharpened, but generally, this is a really cool model. There are 3. I was confused, but there are 3. For the Jezzails, I've made one of them, and as you can see, I've not pushed this one all the way in because I'm going to pull him out to make painting both of them easier. So yeah, it's again quite nice and funky. Quite a big gap here, even though trimming the joints down. So again, just something to be mindful of when you are gluing the models together. Make sure you push them together well so that you can close that gap. Or where the gap's a little big, you can use sprue goo or a little bit of putty to fill those in. But again, very unique kind of model and very cool. Should be fairly straightforward to paint. We'll see. And lastly, we have clan rats. So I've made 10 of them. I think there should be 10 there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yes. So I made 10 of them out of the 40. Now, the good news is these are really quick to put together. So all your kind of clan rats like this, 2-piece models. So really nice and easy to put together. A little bit of sprue goo just on the gap. Let's just roll them to the side. So yeah, really easy to put together. So there's lots of models like this, which are fairly simple. Now, most of them you're going to have duplicates of, which, again, you'd expect in a box like this, and especially when you've got 40 of them. You're not going to get 40 unique poses, which is fine. They're going to be a mass swarm. Probably want some movement trees for them as well. Just because moving each of these one by one is going to be an absolute nightmare. So that's those ones. Where we do have variation, we have them in the champion. So the champion can be built as a normal clan rat, or he can be built as a champion of different clans. Now, this is what I was confused at when I was first reading the instructions. There's different head options for different clans, and that means you can just align it a little better if that's what floats your boat. So don't ask me to name the clans. I am not a Skaven aficionado. A little bit pull off there. But yeah, so he's the unit champion. You can build him differently. You've also got a musician, so this one is ringing his bell. Now, you've also got one that's beating a drum, so you've got different options for the musicians, which again, I think is pretty cool. And then lastly, we've got the standard bearer. Now, I like this. He's got lots of little rats running with him, and he's running as well, or she's running. And this has got a long one. You've also got the one with the kind of the more square banner. So this is an optional build as well. So at least if you've got 2 units of 20, you can have some differentiation amongst the models. So yeah, so that's the clan rats of the Skaven, and yeah, really happy with all the models. They all look great. It's going to be interesting to try and actually paint these in any sort of pace or in any period of time. So we'll have a look at how well I'm capable of doing that, I'm sure. So the last bit of sprue to look at is the terrain. It's always nice having terrain in the box, and this is to help play spearhead, I think. And again, in terms of how it goes together, it looks fairly straightforward. There's going to be some gaps and some mold lines we need to fill. And here is the terrain, a nice chunky sprue. You've got your 2 walls, so they're detailed on both sides. And then obviously you've got some additional bits to pop in. We've got some nice chunky bits of warp stone there as well to get painted. So this is all fairly desecrated terrain, but it should be nice and straightforward to paint. Dry brush, contrast. I'll do a video on how to do it as well to get it looking pretty cool. So yeah, I do like it when you get terrain in starter boxes. This here is measuring stick as well. So you've got ends, that's an inch, I guess. We've just changed our unit of measurement to rats for Skaventide. So that's all the miniatures in the box. So within the box, you also get 2 books. This one, which is called Fire and Jade, which I can't show you because there is a different embargo day on it, but that's everything you need. Fire and Jade, everything you need to play Spearhead. And then we have the core book, which is a nice chunky monster. So I will briefly work through the core book, just looking and showing you some of the art and some of the things I come across, some of the kind of the lore. That's the contents, so I'll leave that if you want to pause the video and have a look at the contents. And then we'll flick our way through. Now, if there's any points and stuff, I'm not going to go into that, but generally you've got the kind of the background and the information, some of the studio armies there, some info on Golden Demon. This was such an amazing piece. So good. Chris Clayton there, literally smashing it with a Slayer Swordwinner. Yeah, I'm not going to go through this page by page. I'm just going to flick through it very quickly so you can see some of the art. There's a nice little Skaven nuke going off. If you've played Warhammer Total War 3, then you'll know all about those bad boys. And the Stormcast as well. So again, great art. This is the artwork that you get in the poster in the box. And then you start to kind of get into the kind of the lore and the information of it all. And it's all really nicely put together. Again, fantastic artwork. A lovely kind of pull-out section in the middle, which talks about the realms and the etheric void, which, again, is funky. And then you've got, it's always the same. Whenever you open these bits, it's a nightmare to get them back together. Oh, look at that cracking Age of Sigmar artwork there. And then you've got, again, more information working through a map. So nice. The artwork is so good in these. I find it's a lot more colourful perhaps than 40k as well, and that's another thing that perhaps is jumping out and think, oh, that's really cool. I love that desecrated Sigmar statue, which had the head cut off and the Skaven flag attached. Screaming bell there, that's cool. So yeah, we'll just kind of throw ourselves through and look at it. That's such a nice book. Quality is so good. There's a lot of information here. Now, for someone like me who's not really got into Age of Sigmar, this is perfect. Like, the models are great, but I never really got into it. And that's not because I don't like it or because I'm a fantasy battle diehard. It's never something that's really got to me. But the Spearhead, I'm quite excited about that. So I might try and play some Spearhead. But generally, it's nice because there's so much information. Whereas with 40k, you kind of get a little bit of regurgitated lore information and things like that. So this is really cool. So, I mean, a third of the way through is all lore, Skelven stuff. So nice. And then we've got the Age of Sigmar, so we've got all the stuff beyond, and then this is what happens when Sigmar arrives and rocks up. We've got all the original kind of artwork there. Which is cool. Soul Wars was the last one. Rip. Evocators. Again, Era of the Beast. We all remember Kragnos. King Broad, Sons of Behemat. And then we've got a nice kind of bit on the factions. Again, cracking artwork all the way through this. Do like the Seraphim, do like the Lumineth as well, to be fair. So, got some fantastic pictures of all the heavy metal painted, the Champions of Order. So it's kind of nice to go through and look at some of these, easily from some of the books. Cities of Sigmar there. Quality models, lovely release. You find that like the Age of Sigmar stuff is just looks so good. The models are great. The newer releases are just amazing. Alariel there. I'd love to paint Alariel. Maybe when they do Sylvaneth release, maybe I'll paint Alariel for that. Caradron Overlords. And then you've got Chaos again, the Pantheon with the Horned Rat joining it. Slash doesn't look overly happy. And again, you've got just the army lists and the fantastic artwork as well. Archaon. I never painted a Turnus, but I did paint the Brachia recently, so there's a full painting tutorial for a Brachia on here. Lord of Change. I've done very little Chaos, actually, thinking about it in terms of what I painted, so there's the opportunity there to paint some demons. Great and Clean one. Keeper of Secrets. Lord of Change and a Bloodthirster. Oh, and Death. Bone Reapers. Again, Bone Reapers and Nighthaunt, not really done much with. Nagash is a great model. Do like the vampires, the Soulblight Gravelords. So I've done Laukavai, you've done the Blood Knights. Did Usharan. Not done any of the others really. You did Kragnos. So this is all the destruction. Did one of the new giants as well. And the Iron Jaws is King Broad. So again, cracking models. And then we get to the rules. Now, I'm not the person to kind of talk to you about the rules. But again, I'm just going to briefly scroll through them for you. You can have a little pause if you want. This isn't all the information you need, but it's good stuff to kind of go through on how to play. There's going to be other videos out there about how to play. And guys, if you know somebody, if you know a YouTuber who's got really good how to play, Age of Sigmar 4 and things like that, put the links to it down in the comments. Help other people watching the videos to learn how to play. You might even help me learn how to play because I haven't got a Scooby-Doo. So that's it. That's the Age of Sigmar 4 book. There is literally so much reading in here. I mean, that artwork on the front is cracking to start with. So I'm assuming is that the Lord Terminus? I think it might be. Maybe I should have done it with a bare head. Using the spell head from Lord Vigilant, but doesn't matter. It's all good. Yeah, it's fantastic artwork in the core book. We've just got one more thing to go through, and that is the stuff to play Spearhead for the models in the box. So the last thing we've got in there is this, and that's a cardboard box. I do enjoy the Games Workshop using these for presentations, some cracking artwork. It is empty, because I've taken everything out, but the instruction booklets come in here. And the first thing I'll show you is this, which is the game board that comes in here. As you can see, it's double-sided. Now, I haven't, unfortunately, got room to fold it out properly on my desk. Ooh. But again, very nice. So there's some objective markers. I believe this is for playing Spearhead on. But you can play anything on it. It's just a nice board to play on. It's quite chunky cardboard as well. So you can see each layer is fairly chunky. So that's going to be durable, which is important. Next up, we've got playing cards. So we've got the General's Handbook, 24-25. So I guess they do seasons in Sigmar. So this is going to give you kind of your rules there. Order battle tactics, death battle tactics, destruction on the other side. And then you've got different missions and the explanation of how they all work, objectives, which is quite cool. And then you've got a roster card at the back, which again, this is quite shiny. So I think you could probably fill this in with a non-permanent pen, wet white marker maybe. That obviously got a good point. And then you can wipe it clean. And the last thing we've got is this little card holder. So we've got two sets of cards. I'm guessing these are going to be potentially what random occurrences based on which realm you're playing in. Battle tactic mission cards. So again, you're talking to somebody who doesn't play Age of Sigmar here, but if I was going to use the 40k analogy, I'm guessing you draw some of these at the start of a battle round, and then you can play or discard them as like objectives. Please let me know in the comments down below so that I can learn, and so can other people who might be watching this who not played Age of Sigmar, wonder what the heck it is. And then you've got an Akshi twist. So again, different battle tactics depending on perhaps the realm that you're working in or playing the game in. So there we are. That is everything you get in the Age of Sigmar 4 starter box. I really hope you enjoyed the deep dive on this video. There is so much in this box. Let me know in the comments down below what kind of painting tutorials you want to see, and I'll see if I can get them done for you. We've got a nice long run in as pre-orders go live on the 29th of June, and it is in stores from the 13th of July. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.